wedding day lie. Welcome to our channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more emotional stories. She was standing in a white dress that wasn't meant for her, about to marry a man who didn't even know her name. Lila Hart stared at her reflection in the bridal suite mirror, her hands trembling as she adjusted the diamond-encrusted veil. The dress was stunning, custom Vera Wang, worth more than her entire year's salary as a kindergarten teacher. But it wasn't her dress. It was her twin sister's. "You look beautiful," her mother whispered, tears streaming down her face. But they weren't tears of joy. They were tears of guilt. Lila's heart pounded. "Mom, I can't do this. This is Elena's wedding. Elena's fiancé. I'm literally pretending to be my own sister." Her mother grabbed her shoulders, desperation flooding her eyes. "Elena ran away, Lila. She's gone. If you don't walk down that aisle in 10 minutes, the Hart family will be destroyed. Your father's company will collapse. We'll lose everything." "But Damian Blackwood thinks he's marrying Elena. He's never even met her," her mother hissed. "This was an arranged marriage, a business merger. He doesn't care which twin he gets, as long as the contract is signed." Lila felt sick. Her twin sister, Elena, the golden child, the perfect daughter, had vanished the night before her own wedding. No note, no explanation, just a single text message. "I can't marry a man I don't love. I'm sorry. Live your life, Lila. For once, live for you." But living for herself apparently meant becoming a replacement bride for a man she'd never met. "5 minutes, Miss Hart." A wedding coordinator called from the door. Lila's stomach twisted. She thought about running. But then she pictured her father's face, the man who had worked himself to exhaustion building Hart Industries from nothing. The company was drowning in debt. This marriage to the Blackwood Empire was the only lifeline. "I'll do it," Lila whispered. "But I'm only doing this for Dad." Her mother kissed her forehead. "Thank you, sweetheart. Thank you." The cold groom. The chapel was breathtaking. White roses cascading from every surface, crystal chandeliers glittering like stars. 500 guests filled the pews, all elite society members, business moguls, and celebrities. And at the altar stood Damian Blackwood. Lila's breath caught. He was devastatingly handsome. 6'3", jet black hair perfectly styled, a jaw so sharp it could cut glass. He wore a custom black tuxedo that screamed power and wealth. But it was his eyes that stopped her heart. Cold, piercing, gray as a winter storm. He looked at her with zero emotion. No words, no curiosity, just indifference. As Lila walked down the aisle on her father's arm, she could feel the weight of the lie crushing her chest. Every step was a betrayal. Every smile from the guests was based on a deception. When she reached the altar, Damian didn't even look at her properly. He was checking his phone. The officiant cleared his throat. "Mr. Blackwood?" Damian pocketed his phone, barely glancing at Lila. "Let's get this over with." The words were like a slap. Lila's hands shook as she held the bouquet. The ceremony was a blur. Vows were exchanged, generic, corporate, emotionless. When the officiant said, "You may kiss the bride," Damian leaned in mechanically, pressing the coldest, most perfunctory kiss to her lips. It lasted exactly 2 seconds. Then he pulled away, his expression unreadable. "Smile," he murmured under his breath. "We're being photographed." Lila forced a smile, her heart sinking. "This is my life now," she thought. "I'm married to a stranger who doesn't even want me." The wedding night revelation. The reception was a lavish affair at the Blackwood estate. A sprawling mansion that looked like it belonged in a European palace. Champagne flowed, a live orchestra played, and the elite mingled like peacocks showing off their feathers. Lila sat at the head table, feeling like an imposter. Damian was beside her, but he might as well have been on another planet. He spent the entire reception on his phone, barely speaking to her. Finally, as the night wound down, Damian stood. "We're leaving." Lila blinked. "What?" "The honeymoon suite. It's expected." He didn't offer his hand. He just walked away, expecting her to follow. The suite was on the top floor of the mansion, a massive room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, a California king bed, and a marble bathroom bigger than Lila's childhood bedroom. Damien immediately loosened his tie, poured himself a whiskey, and sat on the leather couch, scrolling through his tablet. Lila stood awkwardly by the door, still in her wedding dress. "You can take that off," Damien said without looking up. "There's a closet full of clothes for you. Your size was provided." "Damien, can we talk?" "About what?" "About us. About this marriage." He finally looked at her, his gray eyes assessing. "This marriage is a contract. You're a heart. I'm a Blackwood. Our families benefit. That's all this is." Lila's chest tightened. "So, what? We just live like roommates." "Essentially." He took a sip of whiskey. "I have my life. You'll have yours. Public appearances will be coordinated. We'll maintain the illusion for the press and our families. But privately, we don't owe each other anything." Lila felt tears prick her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. "And if I want more than that?" Damien's expression didn't change. "Then you married the wrong man." He stood, grabbed his jacket, and walked to the door. "Where are you going?" Lila asked, her voice cracking. "I have work to do." He paused at the door. "Oh, and Lila?" Her heart skipped. "He knows my name?" "Don't wait up." The door closed behind him. Lila stood alone in the massive suite, the weight of her new reality crashing down on her. She sank onto the bed, still wearing the wedding dress, and finally let the tears fall. But as she cried, something inside her shifted. Elena ran away to live her life. Maybe it's time I start living mine too. The unexpected encounter. 3 weeks into the marriage, Lila had barely seen Damien. He left before she woke up and returned long after she was asleep. They lived in the same mansion but existed in parallel universes. Lila spent her days exploring the massive estate, reading in the library, and trying to figure out what her life had become. One afternoon, while wandering the gardens, she heard voices coming from the poolside cabana. "Can't believe you actually went through with it." Lila froze. That was a woman's voice. "It's business, Vivian. That's all it's ever been." "Damien." Lila's heart raced. She crept closer, hidden behind a row of hedges. Through the gaps, she could see Damien sitting on a lounge chair. Beside him was a stunning woman with long auburn hair, designer sunglasses, and a bikini that left little to the imagination. The woman, Vivian, trailed a finger down Damien's chest. "Business? Is that what you call it? You married some random girl while I'm sitting here, waiting for you like an idiot." Damien caught her hand. "Vivian, we talked about this. The marriage was necessary. It doesn't change anything between us." Lila's blood turned to ice. "So you're saying," Vivian purred, leaning closer, "you're still mine?" Damien didn't answer. He just pulled Vivian into a kiss. Deep, passionate. Nothing like the cold peck he'd given Lila at the altar. Lila stumbled backward, her hand over her mouth to stifle a gasp. She ran. The breaking point. That night, Lila waited in the master bedroom. For the first time in weeks, she was determined to confront Damien. When he finally walked in at midnight, she was sitting on the edge of the bed, her arms crossed. "We need to talk." Damien sighed, loosening his tie.
"Lila, I'm tired."
"Who's Vivian?" He froze. "I saw you today," Lila said, her voice shaking. "In the garden. With her." Damien's jaw tightened. "You were spying on me?" "I was walking in my garden." Lila shot back, standing up. "And I saw my husband kissing another woman." "Lila, don't Lila me." Tears streamed down her face. "I gave up everything for this marriage. I stood in for my sister. I signed a contract that tied my life to yours. And you're cheating on me?" Damien's eyes turned cold. "Cheating implies there was something real to betray. We're not a real couple, Lila. We're a business arrangement." "Then why did you marry me at all?" "Because I needed a wife. On paper. For the merger. For appearances." He stepped closer, his voice low and cutting. You were convenient. That's all. The words shattered her. Lila stared at him, her chest heaving. I hate you. Good, Damien said flatly. Makes it easier. He turned and walked out, leaving Lila alone once again. But this time something inside her snapped. Convenient? She thought. Fury replacing heartbreak. I'll show him convenient. The plan begins. The next morning, Lila made a phone call. Hello? A familiar voice answered. Elena, Lila said coldly. It's me. I need your help. There was a pause. Lila? Oh my God. I'm so sorry. Save it. I don't want apologies. I want revenge. Another pause. Revenge? On who? Lila's eyes hardened. On Damien Blackwood. And I need you to help me destroy him. The Alliance. Elena arrived at the Blackwood mansion 3 days later, slipping through the side entrance like a ghost. Lila had arranged the meeting carefully. Damien was in Singapore for business, and the staff had been given the afternoon off. When Lila opened the door to the private study, she barely recognized her twin. Elena looked different, thinner. Her blonde hair now dyed a dark chestnut brown, dressed in ripped jeans and a leather jacket instead of her usual designer dresses. But her eyes, those identical green eyes, held the same guilt Lila had seen the night before the wedding. You look, Elena started. Don't. Lila cut her off. She closed the door and locked it. I didn't ask you here for a reunion. I asked you here because you owe me.
Elena Flynn Kid.
I know. Lila, I'm so sorry. I was a coward. I couldn't go through with marrying a man I'd never met. And I ran. I thought maybe if I disappeared, the wedding would be called off. But it wasn't, Lila said bitterly. Mom and Dad begged me to take your place, to save the family. So I did. I married him. And now I'm trapped in a contract marriage with a man who's cheating on me. Elena's eyes widened. He's cheating on you? With a woman named Vivian Kane. Lila pulled out her phone and showed Elena the photos she'd secretly taken. Damien and Vivian at a private restaurant, holding hands. Damien and Vivian entering a luxury hotel together. Damien and Vivian kissing in his car.
Elena's face darkened.
That bastard. Exactly. Lila put the phone away. So here's what I need from you, information. You were supposed to marry into the Blackwood family. You must have researched them. You must know something I can use.
Elena hesitated.
Use for what? To bring him down, Lila said coldly. Damien Blackwood thinks I'm just some convenient little wife he can ignore while he screws his mistress. He thinks I'm weak, replaceable. But he's wrong. Elena stared at her twin, shocked. This wasn't the sweet, soft-spoken Lila she'd grown up with. This was someone new, someone harder. Okay, Elena finally said. I'll help you. But Lila, if you go after someone like Damien Blackwood, you need to be ready for war. Lila's eyes glinted with determination. I'm counting on it. The investigation. Over the next 2 weeks, Lila became a ghost in her own home. She watched. She listened. She learned. She discovered that Damien's business trips were often covers for meetings with Vivian. She found out that Vivian Kane was a corporate lawyer who worked for Blackwood Industries, and that she'd been Damien's on-and-off lover for 3 years. But the real bombshell came when Elena hacked into Damien's private emails. Lila, you need to see this, Elena said one night, her laptop glowing in the dim light of Lila's bedroom. Lila leaned over her sister's shoulder, scanning the screen. It was an email chain between Damien and his father, Victor Blackwood. Victor Blackwood. Is the Heart Girl pregnant yet?
Damien Blackwood. No.
And she won't be. This is a business arrangement, not a real marriage. Victor Blackwood. Then make it real. We need an heir within the year, or the merger clause activates. If there's no child, Heart Industries reverts back to the Hearts, and we lose the controlling stake. You know what's at stake here, Damien. Damien Blackwood. I'll handle it. Victor Blackwood, you better. Or I'll handle it for you. Lila's blood ran cold. They only married me to produce an heir? She whispered.
Elena nodded grimly.
It's in the contract. Clause 47. If you don't have a child within 12 months, the merger dissolves, and Hart Industries gets its independence back. Lila's hands shook. So I'm just a broodmare to them? Apparently. Fury ignited in Lila's chest. Then let's give them exactly what they don't want. Elena raised an eyebrow. Meaning? Lila's smile was sharp. Meaning I'm going to make sure that merger clause activates. And when it does, I'm going to take everything from Damian Blackwood. The fake affair. Lila's plan was bold, dangerous, and required perfect execution. If Damian could have a mistress, then so could she. She didn't actually want to cheat. She wasn't cruel like him. But she needed Damian to think she was cheating. She needed him to feel the sting of betrayal, to doubt her, to question everything. Enter Ethan Cross. Ethan was a model-turned-actor, devastatingly handsome, charming, and, most importantly, willing to play along for the right price. He was also one of Elena's ex-boyfriends, which meant he had a mischievous streak and loved a good revenge plot. So let me get this straight, Ethan said, lounging on the couch in Lila's study. You want me to pretend to be your secret lover so your husband gets jealous? Exactly, Lila said. Ethan grinned. I'm in. This is going to be fun. Over the next 3 weeks, Lila and Ethan were seen everywhere together. At art galleries, intimate cafes, exclusive clubs. They laughed. They touched. They looked like a couple madly in love. And the paparazzi ate it up. Headlines screamed, "Billionaire's wife caught in steamy affair. Damian Blackwood's marriage in shambles. Who is the mystery man with Lila Hart?" Photos of Lila and Ethan were plastered across every tabloid. Holding hands, whispering in each other's ears, Ethan's arm around her waist. Lila made sure Damian saw every single one. The confrontation. Damian returned from his latest trip to find the mansion swarming with his father's lawyers and PR team. "What the hell is going on?" he demanded, striding into the living room. Victor Blackwood stood by the fireplace, his face carved from stone. "Your wife is humiliating this family." Damian frowned. "What are you talking about?" Victor threw a stack of tabloids onto the coffee table. Damian picked one up. The headline made his blood boil. Lila Hart Blackwood. The cheating bride? There was a photo of Lila laughing with some pretty boy actor, his hand resting possessively on her lower back. "Who the hell is that?" Damian growled. "Ethan Cross," one of the lawyers said. "Actor, model, and apparently your wife's lover." Damian's jaw clenched so hard it hurt. "That's impossible." "Is it?" Victor said coldly. "You've been ignoring the girl for weeks. What did you expect? That she'd sit at home like a good little housewife?" Damian stared at the photo, a strange, unfamiliar emotion twisting in his chest. Jealousy. "Where is she?" he demanded. The truth comes out. Lila was in the garden when Damian found her. She was sitting on a stone bench, reading a book, looking infuriatingly calm. "Lila." She looked up, feigning surprise. "Oh, you're back." Damian crossed the distance in 3 long strides, slamming the tabloid down beside her. "Who is he?" Lila glanced at the photo, then back at Damian with cool indifference. "A friend. A friend." Damian's voice was dangerously low. "You're all over the tabloids with this guy. You're holding hands. He's touching you. The whole world thinks you're cheating on me. And, Damian's control snapped. "You're my wife, Lila." Lila stood, her eyes blazing. "Oh, now I'm your wife? Funny. 3 weeks ago, I was just a business arrangement. I was convenient. Remember?" Damian faltered. "You don't get to ignore me, humiliate me, and parade your mistress around, then act shocked when I have a life of my own," Lila said, her voice shaking with fury. "Ethan makes me feel seen. He makes me feel wanted. Which is more than I can say for you." Damian's hands clenched into fists. "So you are sleeping with him. What if I am?" Lila shot back. The silence was deafening. Damian stared at her, his gray eyes stormy with emotions he couldn't name. Then, without a word, he turned and walked away. The breaking point. That night, Damien didn't sleep. He paced his office, replaying every interaction he'd had with Lila. He thought about the way she'd looked at him on their wedding day, hopeful, nervous, earnest. He thought about the coldness in her eyes tonight. What have I done? Meanwhile, Lila lay in her bed, her heart pounding. The plan was working. Damien was rattled, jealous, confused. But as she stared at the ceiling, she realized something terrifying. A small, traitorous part of her wanted him to be jealous. A small part of her wanted him to care. No, she told herself firmly. He doesn't get to hurt you and then win you back. This is about revenge. Stay focused. But when her phone buzzed with a text, her heart skipped. Unknown number. We need to talk. Meet me at the Rosewood Hotel. Room 512. Tomorrow. 8 p.m. Come alone. Lila's blood turned to ice. Vivian. The meeting. The Rosewood Hotel was the kind of place where secrets were bought and sold over champagne and caviar. Lila stood outside room 512, her heart hammering against her ribs. This is a trap, her instincts screamed. Turn around. Leave. But she'd come too far to back down now. She knocked. The door opened almost immediately. Vivian Kane stood in the doorway, looking like she'd stepped out of a fashion magazine. Silk blouse, tailored pants, crimson lipstick. But her eyes were cold, calculating. Lila Hart, Vivian said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. Or should I say, Lila Blackwood? Come in. Lila stepped inside, her muscles tense. The suite was luxurious. Panoramic city views, a bottle of wine chilling on the table, soft jazz playing in the background. Vivian poured 2 glasses of wine, offering one to Lila. I don't drink with strangers, Lila said coldly. Vivian laughed. A sharp, brittle sound. Strangers? Honey, we're practically family. We're both sleeping with the same man. Lila's jaw tightened. I'm his wife. On paper, Vivian corrected, taking a sip of wine. But we both know Damien doesn't love you. He never will. You're just a contractual obligation. Lila forced herself to stay calm. If that's true, why did you ask me here? To gloat. Vivian's smile faded. No. I asked you here to make a deal. The proposal. Vivian set down her glass and crossed her arms. Here's the situation. Damien and I have been together for 3 years. We love each other. We have a future. But his father forced him into this ridiculous arranged marriage to save his precious company. Get to the point, Lila said. The point is, you're in the way. Vivian's eyes hardened. But you don't have to be. I'm offering you a way out. What kind of way out? Divorce Damien, Vivian said simply. Walk away. I'll make sure you're compensated. $5 million. Cash. Untraceable. You disappear, Damien and I get married, and everyone's happy. Lila stared at her, stunned. You want to buy me off? Call it whatever you want. But think about it, Lila. You're miserable. Damien doesn't want you. Why stay in a loveless marriage? Lila's mind raced. $5 million was more money than she'd ever dreamed of. She could disappear. Start over. Be free. But then she remembered Damien's cold words. You were convenient. That's all. She remembered Vivian kissing him in the garden. She remembered being used, manipulated, treated like a pawn. No, Lila said quietly. Vivian blinked. What? I said no. Lila stood, her voice steady. I'm not walking away. Not until I'm ready. And definitely not because you asked nicely. Vivian's expression turned icy. You're making a mistake. Maybe, Lila said. But it's my mistake to make. She turned and walked out, slamming the door behind her. The revelation. That night, Lila couldn't sleep. Vivian's offer kept replaying in her mind. $5 million. Freedom. A fresh start. But something didn't add up. Why would Vivian offer her money unless she was desperate? Lila grabbed her laptop and started digging. An hour later, she found it. Hidden in the depths of financial records, buried beneath layers of shell companies and offshore accounts, was the truth. Vivian Kane wasn't just Damien's mistress. She was embezzling from Blackwood Industries. Millions of dollars had been siphoned off over the past 2 years, funneled into private accounts under fake names. And the trail led directly back to Vivian. Lila's hands trembled as she saved the evidence. This changes everything. The trap. The next morning, Lila called an emergency meeting with Elena and Ethan. "We have her," Lila said, spreading the financial documents across the table. "Vivian's been stealing from Blackwood Industries. If I can prove this to Damien, he'll have no choice but to get rid of her."
Elena frowned.
"But will he believe you? He's been sleeping with her for years. He might think you're just trying to sabotage her." "Then we need irrefutable proof," Lila said. "And I have an idea." The confrontation at the gala. The annual Blackwood Industries Charity Gala was the social event of the season. Billionaires, celebrities, politicians, all gathered under one roof. Lila arrived on Damien's arm, wearing a stunning emerald gown that matched her eyes. She looked every inch the perfect wife. Damien barely looked at her. He was scanning the crowd, his jaw tight. "Looking for someone?" Lila asked innocently. "Vivian's supposed to be here," he muttered. "Oh, I'm sure she'll turn up," Lila said with a smile. As the night wore on, Lila waited. And then, right on cue, the screens around the ballroom flickered. A video began to play. It showed Vivian in her office, transferring funds, forging signatures, deleting records. The evidence was damning. The crowd gasped. Damien's face turned white. "What the hell?" he started. Then the doors burst open. Police officers stormed in, followed by FBI agents. Vivian Kane, one of the agents, called out, "You're under arrest for embezzlement, fraud, and money laundering." Vivian stood frozen, her face a mask of shock and fury. She looked directly at Lila, and Lila smiled. The aftermath. Later that night, back at the mansion, Damien cornered Lila in the hallway. "That was you," he said. "You turned her in." Lila met his gaze steadily. "Yes." "Why?" "Because she was stealing from your company. Because she was using you. And because—" Lila hesitated. "Because you deserved to know the truth." Damien stared at her for a long moment. Then, to her shock, he laughed. A bitter, exhausted sound. "I'm an idiot," he said quietly. "I pushed you away. I treated you like you didn't matter. And all this time, you were the only one who actually gave a damn." Lila's heart ached. "Damien, I don't deserve you," he said, stepping closer. "But if you'll let me, I'd like to try to make this real." Lila looked up at him, tears in her eyes. And for the first time since their wedding day, she saw something real in his eyes. Hope. The final twist. Months later, Lila sat in a coffee shop, reading the morning paper. Vivian Kane sentenced to 15 years for corporate fraud. She smiled. Her phone buzzed. A text from Damien. "Dinner tonight? Just the two of us?" Lila typed back, "I'd like that." But as she set down her phone, another message appeared. From Elena. "I found something. About the merger. About why Dad really pushed you into this marriage. Call me. Now." Lila's blood ran cold. "It's not over. I married my sister's billionaire fiancé, then discovered his shocking secret. He thought I was weak, until I destroyed his mistress and took everything. Rejected by the billionaire, I became the wife he couldn't live without. Thank you for reading. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more emotional revenge stories. What should Lila discover about the merger? Let me know in the comments. The emergency call. Lila's hands trembled as she stared at Elena's text message. "I found something. About the merger. About why Dad really pushed you into this marriage. Call me. Now." She immediately dialed Elena's number. Her twin picked up on the first ring. "Lila, where are you?" Elena's voice was urgent, panicked even. "I'm at the coffee shop near the office." "What's going on?" "Don't go home. Don't go back to the mansion. Meet me at the old warehouse on 5th Street. The one Dad used to own." Lila's heart raced. "Elena, you're scaring me. What did you find?" I can't explain over the phone. Someone might be listening. Just trust me. Come alone. Don't tell Damien. The line went dead. Lila sat frozen, her coffee growing cold in front of her. Every instinct told her this was dangerous. But Elena was her twin, her blood. If she was in trouble, Lila had to help. She grabbed her purse and headed for the door. The warehouse. The Fifth Street warehouse was a relic from their father's early business days. A crumbling brick building in the industrial district, abandoned for years. Lila pulled up in her car, the headlights cutting through the gathering darkness. Elena's beat-up Honda was already parked outside. Lila stepped out, her heels crunching on broken glass and gravel. The air smelled of rust and decay. "Elena?" she called out, pushing open the heavy metal door. The interior was vast and empty, filled with shadows and the echo of her own voice. Dim light filtered through broken windows high above. "Over here." Elena's voice came from the far corner. Lila walked deeper into the warehouse, her heart pounding. She found Elena standing beside an old filing cabinet, papers scattered around her feet. Elena looked terrible. Her eyes were red-rimmed, her hands shaking. "What is all this?" Lila asked. Elena held up a thick manila folder. "This is why you were forced to marry Damien Blackwood." Lila took the folder, opening it with trembling hands. Inside were documents, contracts, emails, financial statements. As she read, the color drained from her face. "This can't be real," Lila whispered. "It is," Elena said, her voice breaking. "Dad didn't just need the merger to save Hart Industries. He made a deal with Victor Blackwood 20 years ago. A blood pact. The blood pact." Lila sank onto an old crate, reading through the documents with growing horror. 20 years ago, their father, Richard Hart, had been on the verge of bankruptcy. Victor Blackwood had offered him a lifeline, a massive cash injection that would save Hart Industries and make Richard a wealthy man. But there was a price. In exchange for the money, Elena explained, Dad promised Victor one of his daughters in marriage, to unite the families, to ensure the Blackwood bloodline had access to Hart Industries forever. "That's insane," Lila said, her voice hollow. That's medieval." "It gets worse," Elena continued. "The contract specified that if Dad failed to deliver a daughter for marriage by the time Victor's son turned 35, then Victor Blackwood would take ownership of everything. Hart Industries. Our family's assets. Even our childhood home." Lila's mind reeled. Damien turned 35 this year. Exactly. That's why Dad was so desperate for the wedding to happen. It wasn't just about saving the company. It was about preventing total destruction. But why didn't Dad tell us? Why the secrecy?
Elena's face crumpled.
Because he was ashamed. He sold us, Lila, like property, like livestock. And the worst part, she pulled out another document. The contract has a clause. If the marriage produces no heir within 18 months, the deal is void. And everything still goes to the Blackwoods. Lila felt like she'd been punched in the stomach. "So I'm not just a wife. I'm a broodmare." "You were always meant to be," Elena said bitterly. "I was the oldest, so I was supposed to marry Damien. But when I ran away, you became the backup plan." Lila stood, pacing, her mind racing. "Does Damien know about this? About the blood pact?" "I don't know," Elena admitted. Maybe not. But Victor definitely knows. This whole thing was his design." Suddenly, a slow clap echoed through the warehouse. Both women spun around. From the shadows stepped a tall, silver-haired man in an expensive suit. Victor Blackwood, the devil himself. "Brava," Victor said, his voice smooth and cold. "Such a touching family reunion." Lila's blood turned to ice. How did I know you'd be here?" Victor smiled, a predator's smile. "I've been monitoring Elena's little investigation for weeks. Did you really think you could dig into my business without consequences?" Elena stepped in front of Lila protectively. "Stay away from my sister." "Your sister?" Victor laughed. "How noble. But it's a bit late for sisterly devotion. don't you think? You abandoned her, left her to clean up your mess. What do you want? Lila demanded, finding her voice. Victor's eyes locked onto hers. I want to make sure you understand the stakes. You are married to my son, and you will fulfill your end of the bargain. I'm not having a child just to satisfy some twisted contract, Lila shot back. Then you condemn your entire family to ruin, Victor said calmly. Richard Hart will lose everything. Your mother will be left with nothing. And you, my dear, will be responsible for their destruction. Lila felt tears burning her eyes. You're a monster. I'm a businessman, Victor corrected. And business is about leverage. Which brings me to my next point. He pulled out his phone, showing them a photo. It was Richard Hart, Lila's father, sitting in what looked like a hospital bed, hooked up to 4 tubes. Dad, Lila gasped. Your father had a heart attack 3 days ago, Victor said. He's stable now, but stress could easily trigger another episode. A fatal one. The threat was crystal clear. You're blackmailing us, Elena hissed. I'm reminding you of reality, Victor replied. Lila will stay married to Damien. She will produce an heir. And in exchange, Richard lives, your family keeps their home, and everyone walks away intact. He pocketed his phone. Or you can fight me, and I will destroy every single person you love. He turned and walked toward the exit, pausing at the door. Oh, and Lila? Damien doesn't know about the blood pact. I prefer to keep it that way. He's sentimental. Might do something foolish like try to protect you. Victor's smile was cruel. But if you tell him, I'll make sure your father's medical care is discontinued. The door slammed shut, leaving the sisters alone in the darkness. The impossible choice. Back at the mansion, Lila moved through the halls like a ghost. Damien was in his study, working late as usual. She could see the light under his door. She stood outside, her hand hovering over the doorknob. Should I tell him? Victor's threat echoed in her mind. If you tell him, your father dies. But keeping this secret meant living a lie. It meant trapping herself in a marriage built on blackmail and ancient contracts. Before she could decide, the door opened. Damien stood there, surprised. Lila, I didn't hear you come in. Up close, she noticed the dark circles under his eyes, the tension in his jaw. He looked exhausted. Are you okay? He asked, genuine concern in his voice. Lila wanted to collapse into his arms, to tell him everything, to let him protect her. But she thought of her father in that hospital bed. I'm fine, she lied. Just tired. Damien studied her face, clearly not believing her. Lila, if something's wrong. Nothing's wrong, she said quickly. I wanted to say goodnight. Before he could respond, she turned and hurried to her room, closing the door and leaning against it. She slid down to the floor, burying her face in her hands. For the first time since this nightmare began, Lila felt truly trapped. The alliance strengthens. The next morning, Lila called an emergency meeting with Elena and Ethan at a secure location. A private suite at a hotel across town, paid for in cash. We need a new plan, Lila said, pacing. Victor knows we're onto him. He's threatening my father. And I can't tell Damien without putting Dad's life at risk. Ethan leaned forward. So what do? We fight back, Elena said firmly. But we have to be smart. Victor's weakness is his reputation. He's built an empire on respectability, on being a pillar of the business community. So we expose him, Lila said. Exactly. But we need proof. Evidence that he's been manipulating people, threatening families, operating outside the law. Lila thought for a moment. The blood pact contract. If we can get the original document, we can prove that Victor Blackwood has been coercing families into arranged marriages for decades. That would destroy him, Ethan agreed. But where would he keep something like that? Elena's eyes lit up. His private vault. At Blackwood Industries headquarters. It's in the sub-basement, behind 3 layers of security. How do you know that? Lila asked. Elena looked guilty. When I was engaged to Damien, I did some snooping. I wanted to know what kind of family I was marrying into. I found blueprints, security protocols. She hesitated. I even made a copy of the vault access codes. Lila stared at her sister. You were planning to rob them? I was planning to protect myself, Elena corrected. But now we can use it to protect you. The heist plan. Over the next week, they planned meticulously. Ethan would create a distraction. He had connections in the media and would leak a fake scandal about Blackwood Industries' international dealings, drawing Victor and his security team away from headquarters. Elena would hack the building's security system, creating a window of opportunity. And Lila would infiltrate the vault. This is insane, Lila said during one of their planning sessions. I'm not a spy. I'm a kindergarten teacher. You're also the only one who can get into the building without raising suspicion, Elena pointed out. You're Damien's wife. You have access to the executive floors. But the vault is in the sub-basement. That's restricted. Not if you use Damien's keycard, Ethan said, holding up a small black card. I borrowed this from his coat pocket last week. Lila's eyes widened. You pickpocket my husband? Ethan shrugged. I prefer the term temporarily relocated. Despite the tension, Lila almost laughed. The night of the heist. 3 days later, everything was in place. Ethan's scandal broke at 6 p.m. A fabricated story about Blackwood Industries allegedly bribing foreign officials. The media went wild. Victor and his security team rushed to the main office for damage control. At 7 p.m., Elena triggered the security override from her remote location. You have a 30-minute window, she said through Lila's hidden earpiece. After that, the system resets and alarms go off. Lila stood in the lobby of Blackwood Industries headquarters, wearing a sleek black dress and heels, looking every inch the billionaire's wife. She smiled at the security guard. Working late, Mrs. Blackwood? You know how it is, Lila said smoothly. Corporate wife duties never end. She swiped Damien's keycard and headed for the elevators. Her heart pounded as she descended to the sub-basement. The doors opened onto a stark, concrete corridor lined with security cameras. Cameras are on a loop, Elena's voice crackled in her ear. You're invisible for the next 28 minutes. Lila moved quickly, following the blueprint she'd memorized. She reached a heavy steel door marked Authorized Personnel Only. She swiped the keycard. The door clicked open. Inside was the vault, a massive bank-style safe with a biometric scanner. Okay, Lila whispered. Now what? Now you use the override code I gave you, Elena said. Punch in 7-4-1-9-8-3. Lila's fingers flew over the keypad. The vault door hissed and swung open. Inside were rows of filing cabinets, safety deposit boxes, and locked cases. Lila scanned the labels frantically. Family contracts, historical agreements. She pulled open a drawer labeled Blood Packs, Confidential. Inside was a leather-bound folder. She opened it. There it was, the original contract between Richard Hart and Victor Blackwood. Signed in blood. Literally. Lila's stomach turned. Got it, she said, taking photos with her phone. Great. Now get out. You have 12 minutes. But as Lila turned to leave, she heard footsteps in the corridor. Someone was coming. The discovery. Lila froze, her heart hammering. The footsteps grew louder. She looked around frantically. There was nowhere to hide in the small vault room. The door opened. Damien stood there, his expression stunned. Lila? What the hell are you doing here? Time seemed to stop. Lila's mind raced. She could lie, make up some excuse. But as she looked into Damien's eyes, those storm-gray eyes that had started to look at her with something that might be love, she realized she was tired of lying. I'm stealing evidence against your father, she said simply. Damien blinked. What? Your father made a blood pact with my father 20 years ago. He's been blackmailing my family, threatening to kill my dad, forcing me to stay in this marriage. The words tumbled out in a rush. I was going to tell you, But Victor said he'd hurt my father if I did. So I decided to take him down myself. Damien stared at her, his face unreadable. Then he stepped into the vault and closed the door behind him. "Show me," he said quietly, "the truth between them." Lila handed him the leather folder, watching as he read through the blood-packed contract. With each page, his face grew darker, angrier. "That son of a bitch," Damien finally said, his voice low and dangerous. "My own father." "You didn't know?" Lila asked. "I knew the marriage was arranged. I thought it was just business as usual, a merger strategy." He looked at her, pain in his eyes. "I didn't know about the blood pact. I didn't know he was threatening your family." "He said you'd try to protect me if you found out," Lila said softly. "That's why he wanted it kept secret." Damien set down the folder and moved closer to her. "He was right. I would protect you. I will protect you." "Why?" Lila's voice broke. "I'm just a contract to you. Convenient. Remember." "I was wrong," Damien said, his hands cupping her face. "I was so wrong, Lila. I pushed you away because I didn't want to care about you. I didn't want to need anyone. But then I watched you stand up to Vivian. I watched you expose her crimes. I watched you smile at that pretty boy actor and I realized." He took a shaky breath. "I'm falling in love with you." Tears spilled down Lila's cheeks. "You're falling in love with me?" "I'm already there," he said. "And I'm not letting my father use you as a pawn anymore." He pulled out his phone and made a call. "Marcus? It's Damien. I need you to do something for me. Freeze all of my father's accounts. Revoke his access to Blackwood Industries. And call an emergency board meeting for tomorrow morning." He paused. "Because I'm removing him as CEO. Yes, I have grounds. Trust me." He hung up and looked at Lila. "What did you just do?" she whispered. "I just declared war on my father," Damien said. "For you." Damien and Lila are finally united, but Victor won't go down without a fight. What will happen at the board meeting? Can they truly defeat Victor Blackwood? The Final Battle. Part 5. The Final Battle. The board meeting. The Blackwood Industries boardroom was a cathedral of power, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, a massive mahogany table, leather chairs occupied by the 12 most powerful business leaders in the country. And at the head of the table sat Victor Blackwood, looking every inch the king, until Damien walked in with Lila by his side. The room fell silent. "What is the meaning of this?" Victor demanded, his voice like steel. "This is a closed board meeting. Your wife has no business here." "Actually," Damien said, setting his briefcase on the table, "she has every business here, because this meeting is about her. And about you." Victor's eyes narrowed. "Damien, whatever little lovers spat you and your bride are having." "This isn't a spat," Damien interrupted. "This is a reckoning." He opened the briefcase and pulled out the blood-packed contract, sliding it across the table to the board members. 20 years ago, Damien began, my father made an illegal contract with Richard Hart, a contract that essentially sold Hart's daughters into marriage, a contract that violates about 15 different federal laws. The board members began reading, their faces shifting from confusion to shock to horror. "That's a lie." Victor stood, slamming his hand on the table. "That contract is a private family matter." "It's blackmail," Lila said, her voice steady. "And coercion. And human trafficking, technically." One of the board members, an elderly woman named Margaret Chun, looked up with disgust. "Victor, tell me this isn't real." "It's taken out of context," Victor started. "There's more," Damien said. He pulled out another folder. "Over the past 30 years, my father has made similar arrangements with at least 6 other families, threatening them, manipulating them, using their daughters as bargaining chips." Gasps filled the room. "I have testimony from 3 of those families," Damien continued, "all willing to go public, all willing to press charges." Victor's face had gone pale. "You would betray your own father? You betrayed every principle you claim to believe in," Damien shot back. You turned our family name into a weapon. You hurt innocent people. And you threatened the woman I love. The words hung in the air. Lila's heart swelled. Margaret Chin stood. I move for an immediate vote to remove Victor Blackwood as CEO and chairman of Blackwood Industries. Seconded, another board member said. All in favor? 11 hands went up. Only Victor's remained down. The motion passes, Margaret said. Victor Blackwood, you are hereby removed from your position. Security will escort you from the building. And we will be cooperating fully with federal investigators. Victor stood, his face twisted with rage. He looked at Damien. You'll regret this. No, Damien said calmly. I won't. Security guards entered and led Victor away. As the door closed behind him, Lila let out a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. It was over. The aftermath. In the weeks that followed, the media had a field day. Billionaire CEO arrested for decades of blackmail. Blackwood empire exposed. The blood pacts that shook the business world. Damien Blackwood, the son who brought down his own father. Damien was named the new CEO of Blackwood Industries. His first act was to dissolve the blood pact contracts and compensate the affected families. Richard Hart made a full recovery and publicly thanked Damien for his integrity. Elena reconciled with the family, finally finding peace with her choices. And Lila? Lila stood on the balcony of the penthouse she now truly shared with Damien, watching the sunset paint the city in gold and crimson. Hey! Damien's voice came from behind her. He wrapped his arms around her waist, pulling her close. What are you thinking about? About how much has changed, Lila said, leaning into him. 6 months ago, I was a kindergarten teacher living a quiet life. Now I'm married to a billionaire CEO and I help take down a corporate criminal. Damien chuckled. You're underselling yourself. You saved my soul, Lila. You reminded me what integrity looks like. She turned in his arms, looking up at him. Do you regret it? Losing your father. I lost him years ago, Damien said. I just didn't realize it until you showed me what real family looks like. What real love looks like. He kissed her, soft and sweet and full of promise. When they pulled apart, Damien reached into his pocket. I have something for you, he said. He pulled out a small velvet box. Lila's heart skipped. Damien, I know we're already married, he said, opening the box to reveal a stunning diamond ring. But that was a contract. This is real. Lila Hart Blackwood, will you marry me again? For love this time. Tears streamed down Lila's face. Yes, 1,000 times yes. He slid the ring onto her finger, and they kissed again. The city lights twinkling below like fallen stars. The true ending. 6 months later, Lila and Damien stood at a small chapel, surrounded by only their closest friends and family. This time, there were no 500 guests, no corporate merger, no contracts. Just 2 people who had found love in the most unlikely place. As Damien lifted Lila's veil and looked into her eyes, he whispered, Thank you for never giving up. On me. On us. Always, Lila whispered back. And when they kissed, it wasn't the cold, perfunctory kiss from their first wedding. It was a kiss that promised forever.